Now, it was, of course, the topic. David Cameron warned his party some time back to stop banging on about. But the clamours over Europe have only got louder. And this week is, of course, crunch time. On Thursday, the Prime Minister will set out his stall in Brussels, hoping for an agreement on a package of reforms to Britain's relationship with the European Union. Well, I'm joined now by one of the most influential MPs in Parliament, Brady, as chair of the 1922 committee. He is effectively the leader of the Conservative backbenchers. And a very good morning to you,
good morning,
Mr. Brady. Right, well, let's focus on Brussels. Do you think it's really not really worth bothering the Prime Minister with this, given you don't really think that what he's got already, or the proto-agreement with Donald Tusk, amounts to much?
I think all the things that David Cameron's trying to get out of the EU are good, are positive things. But for many of us, it just doesn't come anywhere near to being sufficient. I wanted to see real powers being brought back to British control. I wanted to see things taken out of the hands of Brussels and back in British democratic control. So it doesn't come anywhere near that.
So you kind of know he's not going to get that because as I say, we saw what he thrashed out with Donald Tusk. And do you suspect that even that will be watered down when he comes before his EU partners?
Who can say? But as far as I'm concerned, what it doesn't constitute, even if he gets everything he's asking for, it isn't a fundamental change. It isn't the thing that brings real democratic control back to the United Kingdom, restores our ability to decide who governs us and to be able to kick people out when we don't like them.
But are there those that perhaps didn't entirely support your point of view, thought, OK, Donald Tusk, that was quite a good agreement he worked out with the Prime Minister. If they get something like that, then maybe I might vote for in.
You're talking about my colleagues. I mean, I never pretend to speak for all of my backbench colleagues.
No, absolutely, for your colleagues.
Especially on this subject, where there is a very wide spectrum of views. And of course there will be people who think that this is a good deal, that it's sufficient for them. But I think many, many people in Parliament and outside, all over the country, are looking at this and thinking, is it really the fundamental change in our relationship with the EU that we wanted? Does it take us back to what we thought we were joining 40 odd years ago? Does it take us back to something which is really a trading agreement and an ability to cooperate with other sovereign states? And clearly it doesn't do that.
There is rumbling in the background of all these negotiations, noises coming from our senior European partners at the moment saying that there will actually be a price for the UK should it get agreement, should it then vote to remain within the European Union, that you'll have to get more involved, that you'll have to become more of an active partner.
Well, the fundamental thing that we want, and I think have always wanted with our European partners, is free and open trade. Given that they sell more to us than we sell to them, I don't think there's any danger of that free and open trade being suspended. They would be cutting off their nose to spite their face. So I think it's a given that we would have good open access to European markets, just as we would continue to allow good open access to British markets for our European partners. But it's pretty odd, isn't it? It's a pretty strange kind of club that we're a member of, if the other members, as we try to change our relationship, are seeking to threaten us. It doesn't sound like such a good arrangement as perhaps is sometimes being suggested.
Well, the threats are not just coming from our partners, are there? I mean, what do you think of the campaign? Because, I mean, it's clearly underway at the moment. There are those on your side saying, well, Project Fear has already started from those that want us to remain within the European Union. Thinking about today's story on the front of the Sunday Times, airfares will go up. During the course of last week, we had 5,000 migrants will come here overnight from Calais. What do you make of this?
Well, it's not so long ago that many of the same people were telling us that the British economy would be finished if we didn't join the euro. So I think we should take all of these things with a pinch of salt. But it is unfortunate, I think, that we're not getting the kind of positive debate that would be more welcome, I think, for most of the British people. And, well, really, the question is it a bigger leap in the dark to stay in the European Union? Or are we taking a risk to leave? Now, I think we know beyond doubt, after all of these decades of membership, that staying in the European Union isn't a static position. There's no status quo. If you're in this organisation, it carries on integrating. It carries on accreting powers to itself. It's done it throughout its history. It will continue to do that.
But what those kind of stories do tell us is that it seems that the stay-in campaign and campaigns have got their act together. They're coming across on an almost daily basis with a different story, whereas on the Leave side, you've got various different campaigns. We know about the bickering within the camps. Do you not think it would be best to try and get one organisation to speak for you all?
Well, of course we should have one organisation speaking for the Leave campaign. I hope we'll get there soon. I hope that it'll happen through the Electoral Commission getting on with designation of a lead campaign. We can then all get on with the important thing, which is campaigning to restore British democracy. But all of these campaigns, all of these stories that have been coming out of the campaign to Remain, they may have been very good at producing this copy, but as soon as it hits the front pages, as soon as it's on the broadcast media, it's all been comprehensively rubbished. So, in many ways, I think the more extreme some of these stories become, the more the campaign to frighten people into staying gets into gear, the more effectively it's putting people off the European Union, the more effectively it's making people think there might be something a little bit dodgy about this organisation that we're a member of.
And just talk to me about timings within your own party, within the government, after the Brussels meeting. Should there be a cabinet meeting as soon as possible, perhaps next Saturday, to say to those that say, well, Prime Minister, you tried very hard, we appreciate all your efforts, but you didn't get enough. Please now let us speak out to leave the European Union.
I think that's absolutely essential. It's in everybody's interest to do this as quickly as possible. And if it were to appear that David Cameron was seeking to have the whole weekend to himself to put one side of the argument, I think that would look bad for the Remain campaign. People want an honest, fair debate. They want an honest, fair campaign. So I think it's in the interest of both sides to have that early cabinet meeting and to make sure that people who want to speak out, people who want to exploit that freedom of conscience that has rightly been agreed, can do so as soon as possible.
That should take place on Saturday then?
Well, let's look at the timings. I mean, if it could take place on Friday evening, that would be even better.
OK. And what about Mr Cameron himself? That poll out today saying that, he's been damaged. People losing confidence in Mr Cameron on the EU renegotiations. I mean, this is the man, of course, won an unexpected overall majority for your party. Do you think it's chipping away at him?
Well, I certainly think it's a mistake to try to oversell this deal. It's very clear to everybody it's not a fundamental change in our relationship with the European Union. So, mistake to oversell it. But also, looking at it in a more positive way, every time over the last few years as Prime Minister that David Cameron has done something on the Eurosceptic side, every time he stood up for Britain, every time he when he vetoed the treaty, when he managed to get the EU budget capped, all of those occasions his popularity spiked. So let's hope he draws an inference from that.
I mean, he still technically could be against stay within the European Union. Very unlikely. But if he does campaign to remain and loses that referendum, as you would like to see, haven't you then ended his career?
I think the opposite, really. I think it's essential that if and when we vote to leave the European Union, I think we should all seek to have David Cameron stay in office through what will be a very important period of renegotiation. And I think that having that degree of stability will be important for the country. And I don't think David Cameron would walk away overnight, because I think he's more responsible than that. I think he would know he'd have a real commitment to the country and a need to make sure that we come through that period with the maximum stability and reassure everybody that we can do this.
Always great seeing you. You must end it there, Mr Brady. Thank you very much indeed. Graham Brady there from the 1922 committee. And you're watching Moynihan on Sky News. Coming up next.